There's one reason most high net worth parents avoid the inheritance conversation with their kids, and it's probably not what you'd expect. It's not taxes, it's not legal complexity. It's this: what if telling them changes who they might become? The fear is real, but the data says it's pointed in the wrong direction. Today, I want to talk about why so many families have the estate planning documents in order, but they never actually talk to their children about wealth, and why that gap is more consequential than most people realize. The Williams Group studied more than 3,000 affluent families on wealth transfer outcomes. And here's what they found: 70% of family wealth doesn't make it to the third generation. We've all heard the shirt sleeves in 3 generations conversation. And in 60% of those cases, the cause isn't bad investments or poor tax planning. It's a communication breakdown within the family. Heirs who receive intentional, age-appropriate education about the family's wealth consistently show higher rates of financial responsibility and stronger long-term stewardship than their heirs who found out through circumstances, whether it's death or when the estate settled. The variable that matters most isn't whether kids know, it's how they find out. Now, the concern most parents have is about motivation. I have 3 children myself, so I understand this. If my child knows they're financially set, regardless of what they do, will they still want to build something? Will they still want to work hard? I have these same thoughts daily. And that's a fair question, but it assumes financial security and personal ambition are in opposition. For most people, they aren't. In fact, research in financial psychology consistently points to values, purpose, and meaningful challenge as the drivers of young adult motivation, not financial uncertainty. The children of wealthy parents who avoid this conversation don't become more ambitious because they're uncertain, can actually become more anxious, which is something we don't want for our children. And when heirs eventually learn about their inheritance without any preparation, the reaction is usually one of 2 things: a sense of entitlement towards something they didn't earn, which is what we don't want, or a feeling of being suddenly responsible for something that they had no context for, which is also something we don't want. Neither happened because they knew too soon. In fact, both happened because they never really knew the information in the right way. The good news is that this conversation doesn't have to start with numbers. In fact, we often recommend it shouldn't. It can start with questions. What does your family believe about money? What was sacrificed to build what you have? What does responsible stewardship mean in your household? These are much more valuable than the dollar values themselves. They're high-level conversations, and they don't require a balance sheet. But they will build a foundation that makes everything else go smoothly later, I promise you. I've seen this enough times in my career. When wealth has a purpose and a context behind it, the conversation stops being about a windfall and starts being about responsibility. And that's where motivation actually comes from. If you've been putting this off because of fear of what it might do to your kids, ask yourself an honest question. Is it really protecting them, or is it actually protecting you from an uncomfortable topic? The families who transfer wealth successfully made money something they talked about long before it was a legal event. Let's keep moving forward together.